everyone, welcome to this edition of Prac Talk, also known as the Equality Zone. Today we're going to be covering two subjects, and the first one is going to be about this young man who I just saw on the news who was pretty much bullied to death in his school because, and this time it didn't have to do with homosexuality, it had to do with the fact that he came from an island territory owned by the United States. I can't remember what it's called, but because he spoke differently, he had an accent. And he was a very friendly kid, and he loved making friends, but he went to the school and all he ended up was making enemies. And they bullied him, and they called him names, and they made fun of his accent, and they called him gay. On the news it was never made clear whether he was gay or not, but they called him gay, and they called him all these other things, and they even attacked him in a bathroom, his other classmates, and he couldn't handle it anymore, and he went home and he hung himself by his belt in his closet, and his mother came upstairs and found him. And something I think is funny is that straight people say, "See, haha, only homosexual people do that." Well, there are plenty of heterosexual people who have done the same thing, but they were bullied because their skin was a different color, or because they came from another country, or because their accent sounds different. I mean, I went to the South. And I'm not trying to be mean to Southern people, because there are lots of nice Southern people, but I went to the South and I was made fun of because I didn't speak the way they did. And I've even had Southern people come to the North, and they're made fun of and bullied in school because they have an accent. And so to sit there and say that this is confined with only in homosexuals is a lie, just like many other things that people who oppose homosexuals have to say. And it just makes me sad that bullying is still allowed. The school says that they don't allow it and that they fight very hard to stop bullying, and yet it still happened. Because if it hadn't been happening, this young man wouldn't have come back with the stories that he said. Where were the teachers? Where was this policy against bullying? Because it wasn't there. It didn't exist when this young man was attacked in the bathroom. And I just think it's funny. Also, religious groups. Any religious group is never, ever, 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 ever going to be affected by gay people getting married and gay people being given their rights. If you are in a privately owned church and your congregation meets together, you will not be affected. If you are a church group going in other areas, no matter where you go, you're not going to be affected. The religious areas that they are talking about is adoption agencies. Adoption agencies are public places where anybody of race, sexuality, color, wherever, even other countries, can come and adopt a child. And to sit there and say that religious groups are being attacked and forces, no, they are not. Their adoption agency, which is a public place, is going to be told to respect homosexual people and to allow them to adopt children. Why are you going to sit there and say that it's not right when anybody of any color and any race and any language and from any country can come into the adoption agency and adopt a child, but then you're going to sit there and say homosexuals cannot? What we are doing is not saying that you have to accept us. What we're saying is that you need to give us the respect that we deserve as a married couple now, because we are in these states that we are allowed to get married. We are a legalized married couple, and you must give us the respect by allowing us to adopt a child. Adoption has nothing to do with religion. Adoption is not a religious-based thing. You may have beliefs and thoughts and ideas, but that does not play in where a child is adopted to. You have no right to sit there and say, "Oh, I'm not going to allow this child to be adopted to these people because they're homosexuals." It's discrimination, it's bigotry, and it's wrong. Those are the kind of religious places you want. They're not even religious places, they're just adoption agencies that happen to have people who believe a certain way working in them. That's it. And so, people sit there and say, "Oh, the religious places are being attacked." No, they're not. Religious places, like churches, are not being attacked at all. It's when they decide that they're going to own something that is for public people, for anybody to come into, to adopt a child. That is what it is. That's all. And if you are in a church that rents a place out, that is not your property. To sit there and deny people from being able to rent it out, to use it for other things like homosexual marriage, is not right. You can't do that. And why can you not do that? Because it's discrimination. It's bigotry. We are not saying that you have to be there at all. We are not saying you even have to be the pastor that marries the person. But if you're going to be in a church that is not the church building and is not your privately owned church building, but is a rented place, it is automatically public property, and anybody can rent it out and anybody can use it as they feel. So to sit there and say, oh, religious churches, no, it's not. Privately owned churches, privately owned congregations who believe a certain way are not being attacked at all. It's places that are, it's church groups that are renting public property. So it's public property, not church property. So all that, religious groups are not being attacked in any way. If you want to teach bigotry in your church, go for it. That's if you want to teach to hate other groups of people, if you want to teach your children in your privately owned Christian schools that homosexuality is not right, the government and we as other human beings don't have the right to stop your bigotry and your hate-filled lies that you're filling your children's minds with. If you don't like the fact that we call it that, well, too bad. You call us all different kinds of things. You call us perverted. You call us you tell us we're going to hell. You say all these things. So you can't sit there and say that we can't say those things when you call us every name in the book that you can possibly think of. Also, if I can remember it, schools. Your children, if you send them to a public school and you are of a religious faith, you're sending them to a public place where once gay marriage is legalized, they are taught, just like it happened with interracial marriages when it was legalized, that it is an alternative. We are not teaching that it is the only way of marriage, and we are not teaching you that a man and a woman's marriage is any less and is undesirable and is a relic tradition of marriage. No. When interracial marriages were legalized, the traditional white man, white woman, that was not destroyed. That was not put down any less. No, what happened was people were respected, and people were being told, look, just because a mommy and daddy get married and they're both not the same color doesn't make them bad. And so all it is that just because you have a daddy and a daddy doesn't make you bad people. Doesn't make there's anything wrong with your family. You are a normal family just like everybody else. And to sit there and say that we are unnatural and that we are not a normal family is discrimination and bigotry. If you don't like being called that, then stop doing it. Plain and simple. If you don't like being called a bigot, then don't be a bigot. Because you're not born a bigot. You're taught to be that way. So there are no classes that are 101 on homosexuality. It doesn't exist. These things are made up. These people are in fear of. In fact, they're not even really in fear. They're just hateful. They just don't want to respect it. They want homosexual people to fade away in the background, to go away and be quiet and be in the closet. And they'll sit there and say, oh, I don't mind if someone's homosexual, but they can't talk about it. Their mouths need to be taped shut. They have to do it in the privacy of their homes. They need to close their blinds. They can't go out in public and show their affection towards each other, just like heterosexual people. We don't mind if they're homosexual, but we don't want them. We don't want them. We don't want to see them. We don't want to hear them. We don't want to look at them. And that's wrong. It's discrimination. They did the same thing to black people during segregation. White people were saying, yeah, I don't care if they're black, but I don't want them drinking from my fountain. I don't want them sitting next to me on my bus. I don't want them anywhere near me. Because what did they want? They wanted to act like they weren't there. Stop trying to act like homosexuals don't exist. Stop trying to act like we're not here. Because we're here and we're not going away. We were born this way and it's not going to change. And if you want to go ahead, I mean, it's always existed. I mean, there are still places that teach interracial marriages are wrong. It's never going to disappear. There's always going to be hateful people. And if you want to be a part of that group, then go for it. By all means, you have the rights. It's a free country. But to sit there and say that homosexual people cannot adopt, because adoption is not a religious thing, is wrong. To sit there and say that homosexual people shouldn't be allowed to get married is wrong, because everybody should be given the equal rights to be able to marry whom they want. And to sit there and say, oh, well, God this and God that. Well, I could go into that, but I've gone into that in other verses. I'm not going to even touch it. But, God has nothing to do with it. If you want to think so, you can go ahead and debate me on it, but you better be respectful. And I don't need anti-gay slurs or any comments or things like that posted on my thing, because I will just delete them and I will block you. I'm trying to be as respectful as possible as you. I'm telling you to help you understand that if you are a religion that teaches hate towards homosexual people or anyone else, you're never going to be told that you can't do it in the privacy of your church. Okay? You people even have the right to go up and down streets and pass your literature out to people. You have the right to hold signs up saying God hates this and God hates that. You still have all the same rights that you do. The only thing that you're afraid of and the only thing that you don't want is for gay people to be respected as you are, because you think they're less of a person or that there's something wrong with them. and it's not right, and it's not going to fly. And just like it's changed, just like people have been given their rights in past history, and things have changed, and times have gotten better for certain groups of people, it's going to happen for us. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but it's eventually going to happen.
Ego, 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 ego.